it now. Sam Wakefield here. I am so jazzed to have my guest today. He is somebody that you have more than likely heard his voice before. In fact, there's a good chance you might listen to his podcast. Him and his counterpart listen to their podcast in the past. So we'll mention that here in a minute. But before we do, one of the really cool things that I love about getting to help our industry and help our clients and help our community and just everyone the way that I get to is I get the ability to have high level conversations with top performers, top trainers, just incredible individuals all across our industry and outside of our industry. So definitely don't take that lightly. That's a privilege that when you run a podcast, you get the ability to get in front of some great people. So our guest today, he started in a truck as a third-generation plumber after dropping out of a Detroit public high school in 1997. So our one of the most successful high school dropouts, probably, we'll have on the show. And he moved to Lancaster, Pennsylvania in 2012. I'm going to skip a little bit of this because you get your highlight reel in here. But as a membership of the leader team, holy cow, he helped the company grow from 6 million in 2013 to 34 million in 2023 out of one location. So that's incredible. Also, equally important, married to his wife for 23 years, have 4 children, moved to Phoenix, Arizona, where he currently serves as the GM of the Phoenix Ben Franklin Plumbing. And if you haven't already figured it out, he is co-host of the Waste No Day podcast with Nate Minnick. So this is Brian Burton. He's going to drop some bombs today, share it, and we're just going to have a fun conversation. We have gotten to know each other across the last little bit, and it is very much in alignment in the way that we believe that our industry should go and our trade should go and how to help people better. So everyone, welcome to the show today, Mr. Brian Burton. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. That was a great introduction. I was like, I'm going to just turn my mic off and just wave you to keep going and go. Let's see how long we can talk about me. No,
exactly.
Hey, who's this
like,
Nate
okay,
character you brought up? I don't have a co-host. What is this?
Yeah, exactly.
Like co-host, counterpart. What? Who's that?
Yeah. No, it's more like the guy you make fun of on your show, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, Nate couldn't be here today because he wasn't invited.
Wait a minute, Nate, held the phone. I was invited. Brian said that you never, ever, 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 ever guest on shows other than your own. So
it's so
let's
true.
Be clear here.
I think he guest hosted with me on the Nevcast, which is one of the partners at Wizard of Ads, has a podcast.
Okay,
and that's kind of a business / like sharing the gospel podcast, and Nate's passionate about that, so he definitely joined me for that one. That might be the only one he did with me. He's just like no, he's just like,
how fun.
Yeah.
So like, I love this.
He does not like limelight, man. He doesn't want spotlight on him at all. But it's funny because you were on the show here recently. These episodes may very well air at the same time, and when he gets the cans on, man, it's just game on. The guy just snaps to attention, and he has no problem running. But anywhere else, man, he doesn't want the spotlight.
It's really, really fun too, because he's such an incredible operator at the same time. Is so good at what he does. He, everything that we're so vocal about on our show, when we're really talking about the podcast and stuff, he just naturally does behind the scenes.
I sound like I know what I'm doing, but I just watch what Nate does and write it down and then spit it out like I know it. Right.
Exactly.
Like, I just watched a really good movie and then I talk about it like I directed it.
Right. You're just watching Nate's
pretty
movie.
Much. Yeah. That's what Nate does. Yep.
So now that we pumped his tires a little bit, so this is going to be a fun interview because we have gotten to know each other a little bit, and it's always way less stiff than so many specific interviews with just guest stars, right?
Sure.
Which is awesome. But for everybody in the Close It Now community that may or may not have ever listened to Waste No Day podcast, and if you haven't, make sure to tune in. But give us a highlight reel. How we've heard a highlight reel of your business career, but give us a little bit of highlight reel of the podcast. How long ago did you guys start recording. I heard that you know, basically took it over from the previous person running it. Give us a little history there and what
Yeah.
the
So,
mission and focus is.
excuse me. Yeah, we started it as a way to train our own techs. So a lot of our technicians, not a lot, probably a handful of our techs were coming to us the second time we closed the building down for COVID in 2020. So this was the end of 2020.
Sure.
And essentially we just said, like, look, we're still going to be at work. CSRs are coming in, dispatch. We don't want, I don't know, at that time, probably 60 technicians or 50 technicians coming in and one person getting 10 people sick. And then, so it's just like, if you can run calls, dispatch from home, run your calls. If they come to the shop to get material, we'll meet them at the door, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what got cut out was our very dynamic, camaraderie driven, team focused morning meetings, including our presentation training, which everybody loves. So everybody, I assume everybody loved them because I put them on for the most part. So, you know,
everybody loves it because you came up with it and you're the one giving the training. So everybody loves it.
Of course. Everybody had to love it, right? Or at least only the 3% of people who told me about it. So they would say, like, well, one person, Steve in particular, said, like, it's, and this really stuck with me, said, you know, without our getting together and our trainings and our hanging with the team, it's getting to be like working anywhere else here.
Ooh, that's rough.
And that one stung. So we had talked about starting a podcast where we just interviewed one of our people a week and put it out on some platform where all of our team could listen to it once a week. And hey, it's next best thing. It's what we got, you know? Sure. So pretty quickly, well, Nate kept harassing me. Let's do this. And like, once we get in, I'll be great. You know, I'll just do my normal training, but like putting it together and getting started for me with everything I'm trying to do is like a nightmare. So I'm like, yeah. Oh, we're going to do that for sure. And then finally Nate just said, hey, tomorrow, or actually I think it was like this afternoon, I'm doing a podcast. You're welcome to join me.
So, and this is back when y'all were both in the same location, right?
Yeah. So this was, the end of 2020, we released like a little trailer or something, preview episode in December of 2020, and then actually started in January of 2021. And Nate and I worked together in Lancaster from 2012 to when I left to move to Phoenix here in July of 2023.
Nice.
So it really started, we started doing weekly podcasts in January of 2021. And man, within just probably a couple months, we were getting contacted by people from kind of all over the country. And then by probably the end of the first year, it was all over the world. And there was some point where we noticed we were getting contacted from people everywhere, just telling us how beneficial it was. And it did seem like in the beginning, we really started with like base level communication stuff and kind of stuff that, I don't know, maybe I thought like was stuff that everybody knew and everybody was already using. I always try to innovate my trainings. And like I say all the time, I don't know that I've come up with a single thing, but I do try to package things from all over the selling industry and just slightly bend it toward home services, toward running a call in an HVAC, plumbing, electrical truck. And now I think last I looked, we have 14 different trades listening to Waste No Day throughout the home services.
Right.
But so I just try to skew it toward that because the training I had, most of it was real estate training. It was Brian Tracy and Tom Hopkins and Zig Ziglar. And these guys really geared toward real estate. Even if they weren't saying it, you could just tell in the training that that's what it's geared toward. And obviously Tom Hopkins he held the record at some point, maybe still is a record. He sold 365 homes in 1 year as a realtor. Yeah. Which probably still a record. That's absolutely insane. Yeah. That just makes no sense. So obviously he's trained in real estate, but the rest of them just kind of did too, because that was probably one of the biggest sales professions. So I always just tried to funnel that stuff down and turn it into into training for what we do. And then later on came stuff like the Black Swan Group and, running into Jocko's team and the echelon front stuff with leadership and
right.
physical
And you recently
fitness. And
spent some time out with Andy Elliott over at the over in the Lions
yep.
Den, right?
Yeah. So Andy came on the show, and we recorded it at his studio. And I spent probably a half a day there, just kind of getting to know people and just seeing if I thought everything was a fit for what we do. And
great episodes, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I was pleasantly surprised, and ended up I've invested into some of his training here and there for myself because, well, this is a good thing to say is my wife and I have an agreement that we will allot a certain amount of money in the beginning of the year to development.
Yeah.
And, the lion's share of that is probably the majority of it. Now, it's not set how much goes where, but most of it's going to be into the development of me.
Sure.
In terms of, breadwinning and what I do for a living. But then there's some of it that goes toward us strengthening our relationship. And there's some of it that'll go toward parenting. And, we'll put a little bit here and a little bit there. But that money is set aside in the beginning of the year. And we'll spend Q4 deciding what things we want to do next year. And, for the longest time, it was 10% of my gross income.
Sure.
And I started
really
that when I
camp out on this. Yeah. Let's really camp out on this and talk about how important that is.
Sure. So I started it when I made in 2003, the year before I moved to Las Vegas, and got into a selling tech culture through working under Ken Goodrich.
Yeah.
I had made 32,000 the year before in Michigan. And the very first sales training I went to was Tom Hopkins sales boot camp. You fly out to Arizona, you stay, I think 2 nights, 3 days at the Scottsdale Princess Marriott or something like that. And it is just an intensive, focused sales training with role playing boot camp.
Yeah.
And that was all told, it was about $3,200 to $3,400 that I had to take out a credit card to pay. Yeah. And, I'm sleeping on a bunk bed above my brother-in-law, and my pregnant wife is sleeping on a couch in her mom's apartment because we didn't really have the funds to move. We just moved to get out of Detroit. And we didn't really have the money for this. But I just felt like I was getting beat up by guys that the top guy there told me, he's just like, you got all the talent, all the skills.
Yeah. You're a way better
people
technician.
Like you.
Yeah.
I don't know about that part.
Realistically, though, most of the time that's what happens. You're like, technicians are incredible at being a technician.
Yeah.
But
I'm a third generation plumber,
right?
Like, I know what I'm doing, but like,
you can sleep and fix stuff.
Yeah. My communication skills were just lacking. I was scared, very timid. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. I like you said, I dropped out of high school. I learned very young that the nail that sticks out is going to get hammered. So I was intent on being as quiet and unknown as possible.
Sure.
At school growing up. And I carried that with me, man. And I knocked on my first door in Las Vegas in 2004 as a selling tech now, which I'd never done or heard of before that.
Sure.
And I remember my hands were dripping with sweat and my stomach was in knots and I was like almost shaking, may have been shaking a little bit, which was funny because I had run hundreds and hundreds of plumbing calls leading up to that. But now all of a sudden it was different.
You're being asked to do something a little different, right?
Yeah. And I was excited about it because despite the fact that I didn't want to be a salesman, quote unquote, my mentor, Lance Fernandez, who was the GM there at the time, he explained it to me in a professional way that made me freaking excited about it. Like I wanted to get good at this.
Love it.
Cause it was, I'll never ask you to do anything to that goes against your principles. I would never ask you to do anything that you wouldn't do on the news.
Exactly.
And he's like, and you can go ahead and assume that you will be on the news here because they do stings left and right.
Yep.
But I will show you how to make $100,000 3 times what you made last year in a plumbing truck with the same amount of hours. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this guy, is he kidding?
Yeah. Is this even possible?
Yeah. So, so I got into it and I didn't do great in the beginning, but I I had the opportunity to go to this Tom Hopkins boot camp, and I'm like, man, I got to make this happen.
Mhm.
I got to try something. So I had to have this conversation with my wife. I'm going to spend 10% of what we made before taxes last year.
Yeah.
That we don't have. So I'm going to take out a credit card, and it's going to make me a better communicator and should make me make more money.
Right.
And it worked. And it wasn't like this switch flip immediate thing. Unfortunately, the way that these conferences and sales trainings and the really grueling, intensive ones work, and I still do them. I mean, I was at Andy's shop, I don't know, a month ago, in an all day sales closing mastermind that I paid to be in.
Yeah.
Like we're friends with this guy. We went on a trip with him. I text him, but here's the deal. I don't ask him for anything for free.
No.
Right. This is what he does for a living. So like Jesse Cloud, my buddy, one of his trainers who was my first contact with them. He wanted water treatment put in his house. And I'm like, yeah, bro, we'll hook you up, man. He's like, no. You don't got to hook me up. Just like, tell me how much it costs. Of course he got a discount. He's my boy, but they have the same thing as me. It's just like, no, I don't want anything for quote unquote friendship. Like,
yeah,
this is what you do for a living.
I just want you to deliver and what you promise.
High quality, baby. Yeah. Deliver high quality and don't give me any special treatment unless I'm in this training and you want to call me out and make me role play. Please do that.
Yes, of course.
Even still, after all these years, I struggle to jump up and put myself on that stage,
Right. To be that first to raise your hand. So fill us in though. So you went to that first training, you invested, $3,200 or whatever it was that you didn't have.
Yep.
And then what, let's talk about some like after that, what happened there?
Okay. Yeah. So the tough thing was I was months, probably not even a year into this career, very shy, very reserved, really scared of coming out of my shell at all. Like just right back into high school,
Sure.
So I was trying to take everything I could. And man, my mentor he was such a beast. He was like, we shared a hotel room. That's part of the expense, is these ridiculously expensive suites at this place. And we had, two double bed room.
Sure.
And we wanted to learn all this material. So we wrote sticky notes with the questions and then sticky notes with the answer. And we stayed up role playing. And, I was a drinker at the time, and we were just having drinks and like going back and forth and back and forth. And he was as passionate as I was. Like I wanted perfection out of myself. So we were memorizing these scripts. And then it came to be like test day or whatever. And you just get kind of sequestered into these little groups of maybe 4 people. I don't remember exactly how it worked because this is 20 years ago now. And I think I did 2 or 3, maybe 3 years in a row. So you do these role play, and then he tells you, the other 3 people are going to grade your role play. And then maybe the top 10% or 10 people would stand up and do their role play right there at their seat.
Sure.
And then the top 4 or something would actually come up on stage and role play in front of everyone and get you'd win some kind of medal or something like that. And
nice.
I'm like, yo, I want that. Right. But not bad enough to do it. I know. And then it's crazy because like most of these people are very professional real estate people, most of them. And I had not been around people with money. This was a very new concept to me.
Yeah.
And the parking lot was full of like Porsches and Range Rovers and BMWs and like cars that I had only seen a couple times in Detroit,
Yeah.
So I was just, dude, around people with money. I choked. I'd knock on the doors of some of these mansions and like just fall apart before I even met the person.
Yeah.
I don't understand why, but it maybe just a little bit of imposter syndrome. So I learned everything really well. And then when it came time to deliver the role play, I just shut myself down.
Yeah.
I did a horrible job. I called it nerves. But as this whole year went by before the next one, every day I felt like, you scumbag, like you sandbagger. You spent all that money and you didn't perform at the level you could have because you were scared to get on that stage.
Sure.
And I swore that next year was going to be different. And the next year, no easier to talk my wife into spending that money, despite the fact that we probably made like 70 or 80,000 that year, which was more than double the year before.
Right.
And I told her, this is why, but
Mhm.
it is what it is. She's a penny pincher. She's concerned about paying bills and whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't ever concern myself with that stuff. I'm a high level guy. I'm the revenue guy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So we went back very next year. And that year, I did it. I made one of the people that stood up and role played in front of everyone. And then I made going up to the stage and doing it on stage. And then I got a great picture with me and Tom Hopkins, with him. I think I had an award in my hand or something, and shaking hands with him, which I actually posted on Facebook not too long ago when we had Tom Hopkins on our show, like 18 years later or something. Just, right. But I nailed it. I crushed it. And man, proud moment. Sure. Feels great. Like, oh, I did that thing. And it was one of the hardest things I ever did, because even a year later, everything in me was like, do not put yourself in this position. Like, don't face the possibility of this level of rejection.
Sure.
With this room full of, I don't know how many people they had. Like, sometimes my brain shows me 500 and sometimes 1,500, but I would guess over 1,000 professionals, like people with success. And I'm going to get up there and look like a fool,
right?
And have the social rejection of all these people that I admire.
Right. And here you are, a plumber in a room full of real estate agents,
plumber, yeah,
people that are killing it in something totally different, right?
Yeah, it was crazy, because of all the people I talked to. I didn't meet anyone else who was just in the skilled trades trying to be a better communicator. Now, if you were to go to one of those types of things, you would probably meet a lot of us, right?
Absolutely.
In the home services.
Yeah.
But in 04, 05, it wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. And what I learned later was the thing that I gained was the overcoming of my fear, like of pushing through that fear. That's the biggest thing that happened. It wasn't the award. It wasn't me, it wasn't shaking hands with Tom. It wasn't the applause. It was pushing through this barrier of fear that I had never tried before.
Right.
And man, did I become a next level presenter after that one. Because I was asking people to buy.
Yeah, for sure. And that, I mean, once a mind is expanded, it can never contract, right?
Yeah. Like, who was that? Marcus Aurelius?
Yeah, I think so. Something
great
down.
quote.
Yeah, for sure. It's huge, right? It's like, that's why I love to talk about awareness things. So much, half of my training is like either a word substitution or a mindset shift, that once you realize it, in order to go back to what you were used to doing, you have to intentionally do it once you know the difference.
Yeah. And I'm reading this for the second time. I'm going through Your Future Self, Be Your Future Self Now, which is a great book by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Mm-hmm. He's written like with Dan Sullivan, he's written like Who Not How, and just probably 6 or 8 amazing books about self-development. And a great quote in there, it's actually one of the sub chapters, is failing as your future self is better than being successful as your present self.
Ooh, I love that.
Failing as your future self is greater than succeeding as your present self.
Yeah.
And that's a good clip, a good thing to just stop, pause, pull over, write down real quick. Failing as your future self is greater than succeeding as your present self. Mm-hmm. Meaning, if I had stayed my present self and succeeded and never gotten on that stage, I didn't develop the quality that's required to be successful, which is just like, I mean, forget overcoming the fear or learning how to push through it. It's like we've all played video games. I'm guessing everyone who's listening to this has played a video game.
Sure.
And there's this childlike innocence in us when we do something like a video game, where we pick up the sticks for the first time. And like, let's say, I don't know how old the audience is, but let's say like Halo was the first video game you ever played.
Whew.
You pick up the sticks to play Halo and you just get the crap kicked out of you.
Oh, right? Yeah. Every single time you respawn, you're instantly dead. You're like, I can't even do
there's
anything.
you've never even gotten a 5 Mississippi after a respawn before you
Yeah,
die.
I remember those times.
Yeah, it's always looked back on as fond times, right? And always memorable because you pushed through something.
Mhm.
Now, this childlike innocence in us with this low risk video game tells us, so what? I'm going to get better every time I play.
Mhm.
And weeks, months, years, whatever from now, I will be a master at this game. People will fear my name coming across that screen.
Right.
You have no problem just picking up the sticks, getting the crap kicked out of you, and trying again, right?
Mhm.
But when it comes to things with social rejection involved, it's a psychological thing. It's much more difficult for us, and the reason being, at least according to some articles I read in Psychology Today, which is a great publication, Psychology Today. Just look up that website, and
Oh,
it's just
100% agree.
yeah, tons of brain stuff to read about in there if you're a Detroit public school high school dropout and coming in not knowing anything about anything. But according to several articles I read in there, it was like we're afraid of this social rejection because not so many decades ago we lived in a village.
Yeah.
And my wife and I might be really good at hunting and cleaning animals and turn them into food, and Sam might be a great farmer, and Nate might be fantastic at making shoes, right? And everyone in the village has this thing that they're really good at, so that we can all survive and thrive. And like, one guy's security, and he knows how to crack a skull, and like these folks over here know how to dig a well.
Yeah,
and everyone
stays in
has
their
their
lane
thing,
and does what they're good at, and then barters and trades accordingly.
and the village succeeds.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Now, what if I got up in front of the village one night and made a complete idiot out of myself, to the point where everybody said, you know what, man, the Burtons, they're not going to cut it here. They got to go. So what happens to my family if we get kicked out of the village?
Yeah, it's gonna be a rough time.
The only thing we know how to do is turn animals into food. What about security? What about water?
Mhm.
What about shoes and clothes? Like, we don't know how to do anything. Medical necessities. We're not the medicine man, right?
Yeah.
We don't know any of these other things. What about the fact that there's only 6 of us or 2 of us or whatever?
Mhm.
Some marauders are going to come through, probably throw Amelia over their shoulder and kill me, right?
Right.
So there was real reason for us, not so many decades ago, just a few centuries ago, to really deeply fear social rejection. You could say the wrong thing and do the wrong thing and get cast out of the village.
Yeah, excommunicado.
Yeah, and and your bloodline may very well stop right there. That's it. So all the people who existed before you are just shut off. Boom, done.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this ingrained fear, but real question for the audience listening: does that serve you today? And in some ways it does, because you see people jump on social media and say something so boneheaded that they lose their job, or say something true in many cases, but some truth that people aren't ready to hear, and lose their job and get cut off.
Right.
But in the situation of like asking for something you want, presenting something that's really good for a client, asking them to buy it, helping them overcome an objection that you feel like is rejection, but is really just them asking for help.
Right.
And then asking again, does it really serve you to have this almost crippling fear of doing that?
Absolutely not.
No, it hurts us now,
Yeah.
right? But we struggle to let this thing go. So what I found out at that Tom Hopkins seminar was I let go of the biggest one for me in my life up to that point, 25 years old or whatever I was, the biggest one that had ever existed in my life. I never had the opportunity to let go of one that big before. Now I've spoken on those stages and had to do that over and over again. But at that time, that was as big as it got.
Sure.
So once I did that, I realized I could do it in other places. And now look, I didn't get back to the shop and was like legendary all of a sudden. It still took work every step of the way. Now I needed to start asking clients to buy things. Now I need to start overcoming those objections, helping them through them.
Yeah.
and asking again
Mm-hmm.
and again and again and again. And other things in my life where I just had to start asking for what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But once I broke the big one, the little ones just kind of started falling into place. So the way I train technicians today, and my son and my daughters, like my 9 and 6-year-old were arguing the other day, and my 9-year-old comes running up to me and she said, Clara won't do this. And I said, well, why do you think she won't? I don't know. Well, is it because you told her to? What do you mean? Well, when I yell at you to do something, do you want to do it? No. Right. But when I convince you to do something, when I make you want to do it, you do it. She's like, well, yeah, okay. We'll go make Clara want to do it. Figure out how to make her want to do something. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's these little communication things. But what I do with Tex and my son, not so much with the younger ones yet, but they'll get it, is I make them put themselves in very awkward social situations and go ask for something they want.
Yeah.
And I mean that
give
literally.
Us an example. Yeah. Give us some examples.
Yeah, sure.
Because I love these exercises.
Yeah, I'll send you a video. So I have a video of my 16-year-old son. We were at a frozen yogurt place with mom and the 2 younger girls. We got 4 kids. One's a 19-year-old girl who just doesn't associate with us really anymore. Will come. I mean, she lives there and everything, but work, friends, like it's rare she chills with us at a frozen yogurt place. So 16-year-old son who actually edits Waste No Day podcast, and then our 2 younger daughters. And he gave a kind of look that the girl behind the counter was cute. And she's probably his age, maybe a little older.
Sure.
And I said, he's like eating his frozen yogurt. And I said, hey, buddy, guess what you're going to do? And he knows what that means.
He's like,
and he's
oh, no, Dad.
Oh. Yeah, he's just like, can I just enjoy my yogurt? You know? And I'm like, just go find out what high school she goes to. See if she goes to your high school.
Yeah.
And he's like, fine. Now he wanted to do it anyway, you know, he wants to approach, and he wants to the kind of the victory, and he knows that I'm going to celebrate with him. Even if he fails at it, I'm going to celebrate because he tried. Mm-hmm. And in this case, in this type of thing, when you're breaking through your own constructed social barriers, you should celebrate a loss.
Absolutely.
Right. My son wrestled and football and soccer and basketball and jiu-jitsu. You don't get participation trophies, but in something like this, you celebrate the effort. Yeah. And I mean that in yourself. Mm-hmm. So my back's to him, but I turned my phone around and I recorded it. This is the video I said, I'll send you. He went up and did his thing and probably talked to her for a couple minutes, and it just looked like kind of a normal interaction. But he turns around and faces me and is walking toward me. And what he didn't see was that she just like lit up with this huge smile. And like in a giddy way, like shuffled back to where she was before that. And he never knew it, right? He would have never known this happened, except he got to watch the video of it after the fact. So it was pretty cool. But that's the kind of thing that I'll make him do. And then with technicians, and you know, we talk about this on the show all the time, you just give yourself little missions. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to get 2 awkward, strange pieces of information from everyone I come in contact with today.
Yeah.
And look, I don't mean your client. Finding out what city they grew up in and what they would do for a living if they could do anything in the world. That's easy to get out of a client, right? You should have that relationship with them before you ever present. Yeah. But how about the person who you hand your debit card to at the gas station? Mm-hmm. Right? How about if you go through the car wash, the attendant? Yeah. At the car wash, you got seconds to get this done. Mm-hmm. But everyone
are standing in line with at Starbucks. Right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I do this with my wife. She loves it. It's her favorite thing. She's a big introvert. I'll say like compliment 3 people, like a real genuine compliment today, you know, and she wants to like come outside of herself more. So, but I'll also say like, don't pick someone just like you.
Yeah.
Right. Like Sam's a rock and roll guy, just escaped being a millennial. Right. So don't pick somebody like yourself.
Exactly.
Like pick the big country music guy or the hip hop guy or somebody who's as far away from you as possible, and like make a little connection with them. And this, when you're listening to this on a podcast, no big deal. I'll go do that right now. Right. Just wait till you're in the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And you look around and you only see two people. And like my wife at Target, I said 3 people. And one person was just a lady who had like big gauged earrings and tattoos up her neck and actually on the side of her face, and like not someone my wife would typically associate with. Just
Exactly.
they're two different people, if you will. So she just looked at her and she just walked right up, and I think it was like a bird on her neck.
Mm-hmm.
And she just said, "Hey, that's a really pretty bird tattoo on your neck. I just wanted to let you know."
Yeah.
And this lady who looked angry, like bagging her stuff at the self checkout, like softened, like melted her defensive looking posture. Just like she was irritated, and it just melted away.
Yeah.
And she just turned around and made like real deep eye contact with my wife, and she said, "Thank you so much." And she was just like, and then my wife melted, and she was like, "You're welcome."
Yeah.
And like neither of them knew anything happened, but I witnessed this,
Right.
from 7 feet away. And as she walked back over to me, I just put, the lady walked away, and then I put the hand up for the high
Yeah.
five. I was like, "Yo, that was cool, girl. That was amazing. Like you made her day, and kind of made her own day in the process,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When we give that, it comes back to us, right?
Absolutely, it comes back to us. And I'm not even saying that's the reason to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reason to do it is to come outside yourself.
Sure.
But if you can also like spread that little bit of cheer or joy or maybe appreciation in the process,
Mm-hmm.
man, do you have no idea how many lives you impact?
It's incredible, and I'm glad you really brought this up too. So kind of similar situations. In fact, going back, my first 2 years in the field of sales, I install and some service and stuff before I got into the sales role. For 2 solid years, my one thing that I was like, I have to do this, and I'd read Tom Hopkins' book and gone to some courses and stuff, but I couldn't ask for the sale. I had the hardest time asking for the sale for 2 solid years. It's like I knew the time would come, and I'm like, before the appointment, I would like, okay, I'm gonna ask for the sale. I'm gonna ask for the sale, and sure enough, that time would come, and the knot in my stomach would get there, and the butterflies, and okay,
You would
call me
just
when
push
you're
the
ready.
options forward and go, "Here you go.
Here you go, call me when you're ready, or just sit
Here's
there
my
and
card.
just
Cell phone's on
stare,
the back."
silently stare, and just hope
Right.
that they take action, right? And so,
Yeah.
and I
Pray
love
to
that.
God they ask me to buy it. Like,
Yes. Okay. Well, I start asking questions like, how soon can you install this? Oh, thank God, I'm off the hook now.
whew, I nailed that one. I'm such a good salesman.
Yeah. But I love that you brought up your failures at the beginning too, because I mean, so many people listening, they hear us where we are now and kind of forget the fact that we've got, a couple decades in the industry and thousands and thousands and thousands of reps and literally hundreds of thousands of dollars invested into our own personal growth. And then
Yeah,
they're
you're
like,
not
how
kidding on
how
that
are you
money
so
thing.
good at that? And I don't, and I'm like so awful. Like, well, because we literally sat with thousands of homeowners and done this
Mhm.
just to get
And
the
and
reps
the
in.
the the bigger thing is like David Sandler, the Sandler sales trainer,
Mm-hmm.
the late David Sandler, had in his book, "You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar."
Yeah, great book, by
It's a
the way.
great title for a book. Yeah. He talked about you can be one of two people. So one person has 1 year of career experience and then repeats that year 9 times and calls it 10 years of experience.
Agreed.
Whereas another person will actually actively take notes and develop and get better that entire 10 years and call that 10 years of experience.
Right.
At some point, like you, like so many people who listen to Close It Now we decided that I'm not going to repeat another year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be the same cat in 2025 that I was in 2024. I'm done
Agreed.
with it.
Agreed.
And I spent a lot of time as that. I mean, it was 04. I was 24 when I got to a Ken Goodrich company and started learning about green and growing or brown and dying. This is something Ken Goodrich said to me like 6 times back in the day. He said, "Son, you're either green and growing or you're brown and dying. There is no standing still."
Mm-hmm.
And at some point there, I made that decision. But before that, I don't know. I dropped out of high school in probably 96 or 97. I was like 16 or 17. And from then to 2004, I just I learned as the knowledge made its way into my head. I didn't actively seek out getting better at anything. So I can almost guarantee if you're listening to Close It Now, you've made some kind of decision to get better and better and better. And
Right.
the way to do that, as he said, we've run thousands of calls. I talk about this often in my trainings and stuff, where I had a notebook. I had several notebooks, and I always do, but on my passenger seat, on the top, it just said note to self notebook. I had a quote book that I carried with me at all times. If I read or heard a good quote, I wrote it down and wrote the author, because I just wanted to store that stuff. There were no smartphones, so there was no Google.
This is so fun because I have all these same books, and I kept and still keep for years.
Yeah, I have tons. And I showed the plumbers here in Phoenix recently, like a drawer full of yellow notebooks, just little, 1/2-inch thick notebooks, but the entire 18-inch drawer is stacked full of them.
Yeah.
But the note to self notebook, it was just like, I come out of a call where I blew it. And I said, why didn't I get this sale? So I had my mentor, Lance, who I always gave godlike qualities in my head. And I would ask this one question. And you should have this person, this mentor, this successful version of you that you're always aspiring to. And let's say it's Sam. Would Sam have closed this call? The answer is always yes. He would have figured it out. Now, the next question you ask yourself as you're writing, what would he have done differently? Your brain is so powerful. Even the electricians, all right? Even you electricians.
Even the Sparky.
Your brain is so powerful that when you ask it that question and just start writing, you will come up with an answer that is like another level, Brian Tracy level, like sales trainer, or I don't know who's the newer ones, the Andy Elliott or Grant Cardone,
Jeremy Minor level, right?
Yeah, Jeremy Minor level communicator answer will spit out at the end of that pen. And I wasn't doing it for the reasons that I use now and have now, which is now I create rebuttals for every objection. And I create training plans, and I host a show and like spit these things out all the time. At that time, I was just asking a question that I needed an answer to.
Yeah. Just working on yourself, trying to get better, right?
Yeah, but you don't need Jeremy Minor to answer the question. You're actually smart enough to do it yourself. I don't care who you are.
Agreed.
If you're smart enough to learn to run a call, like, there are handicaps you can have, obviously, that will exclude you from that. But if you've made it that far, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good. You don't need any help. Get that notepad out, the note to self notebook, all through your journey in life. If you come across something that's interesting to you, if you observe something, a behavior that you really like or don't like, journal it, write it down. Like, I want to be like that. I don't want to be like that. But this, walking out of a call and saying, would Sam have sold this? Yes, he would. What would he have said that would have made it sell? And then you write that down over and over and over. Like, you're doing it this week, it will change nothing. It will change nothing. But it's the same as listening to podcasts like this and audio books by the greatest writers in the sales industry. Throughout the weeks, months, years, decades of doing it, you will start to adopt these people's personality traits when it comes to being in the home. You just will.
Yeah.
And I love this thing, Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy, he's the GOAT for me. Like, he developed me more, and I learned more from him and his books and his audiobooks, and even now YouTube videos, than everyone else combined.
Agreed.
I mean, he just hit every aspect of life all the time.
I have a fun Brian Tracy story. I'll
nice.
Put it here in a sec too.
Yeah. So he used to say this thing all the time. The time is going to pass anyway. The time's going to go by anyway. Now, you can either develop and learn, and what's the big thing to listen to right now, at least as this records, is this Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef, or or the Trump Biden elections coming our way here, or
Mm-hmm.
the Tom Brady roast just happened and Nikki Glazer's all the rage right now. Although, depending on when you listen to this, it might be old news. But you can really dig into all this and see how far that gets you.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can spend your time developing and listening to things like Close It Now and the audiobooks of all these people we just mentioned, and
And
spend
waste
your
no
time
day.
doing that and waste no day, and watch the development in you that happens naturally, just
Yeah.
naturally. I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling you. But then start taking notes and implementing and finding accountability partners and getting on the phone between calls occasionally and just saying, "Hey, I just had this objection,
Mm-hmm.
kicked the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Do me a
Let's
favor.
debrief this. Yeah.
Do me a favor. Let's role play it." Not just somebody who can help you come up with a rebuttal for it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then role play back and forth. Like when you add this type of stuff to it, it's rocket fuel.
I love it. And it's being,
It's a catalyst.
I love this so much because now we're choosing to live intentionally instead of living reactively. Because you so much of the same story. When I first started, I was very reactive. I didn't have a job. I had just gotten married, moved, and got a job as a helper because I needed a job and they needed a person, not because I wanted to
Mm.
do HVAC or anything like that. And so, but across time, what happened is I developed the intentionality to real. And I heard Jim Rohn years ago. The quote that hit me right between the eyes was, "Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, holy crap, okay." And so, for things to change, I have to change. For things to get better, I have to get better. So, my fun Brian Tracy's story is you know, looked in a magazine. I think it was in an HVAC, one of the trade publications at the time. This is like 2010, and I found a mail order ad. I had to call Brian Tracy's company. They got on the phone with me. I had to physically mail them a check. So this is like,
Yeah. Little bit
dating
before
myself.
Apple Pay.
Yeah, and they said $330 was the most I'd ever spent on anything for myself, but I knew I had to do it, right? First year, I had no idea what I was doing. I get out there and my sales training was, here's the program we use, here's the stack of leads from the last guy he didn't call, and here's all of our hard costs. Go make money. And that was it. And so I had to figure this out. And so get this, the Brian Tracy 3 stacks of CDs and like the whole workbooks, and for so investing in ourselves, so to kind of tie this again, $330, I gave myself a $30,000 raise that year to the next year, strictly because
Wow.
got intentional, right? Started learning, being very much focused on what you're talking about. Every single call is like, let's debrief this. Where did it go sideways? Win or lose, it was like, what's one thing I could have done better? If I sold it, what's one thing I could have done better? If I didn't sell it, what's one thing I could have done better? It's like, what are 3 great things I did, and what's one thing I can improve? And so over and over and over. So, yeah. So Brian Tracy, man, he's super influential in both of our lives, but also it really reinforces why, every single time I've made a big investment, I've gotten a return in my strictly trackable personal income by about 20 to 30% almost every single time. And I'm sure
20 to 30% in that year.
Yeah, that 1 year alone. And then
Yeah, that's amazing.
The next year, I actually attended the second class Weldon Long ever taught for sales training. Right back when he was just the Bryant trainer. There was like 20 of us in Lubbock, Texas, in this tiny hotel room. And again, 30%. You look at my numbers 1 year to the next, 30%. So it's like every single time intentionally invested and got very focused about implementing what we learned, numbers went up like crazy. So I'm sure you see that with all of your people you train as well. It's like the intentionality and the like self, like investing in myself first to be able to, it's the oxygen mask before you can take care of other people, right?
Yep. It is crazy too. It's like it's not as personality based as you would think. Like one thing I've seen over and over and over is that I'll get a new group and a new team. And, when I left Lancaster, we had 80 technicians and I would train. I think every 90 days, I would get all the techs together who had got there in the last 90 days and apprentices and train them separately for like 4 or 5 Fridays in a row for a couple hours or something like that. And you always think like your high I type personality on the disc profile, or kind of the outgoing joker, but like very charismatic. You always think that's the person who's going to take it and run with it and blow
Mm-hmm.
up, the most lovable person. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just the C type on the disc profile, that engineer mindset, who doesn't have the gifts or the talent for communicating, but just says, well, I'm just going to make fun of him here for a second. I am going to adopt this process until I become great at, like
Exactly.
your engineer guys are.
Uh-huh.
Nate, my co-host, is one of them. Is very, they're very dry and methodical. But if they decide to take the training and run with it, like you're saying, or really invest in themselves, they blow up.
Mm-hmm.
And the person with all the gifts and the talents who decide to stay put, or just think it would naturally happen,
Yeah.
and they need to put no work in outside of training or whatever in the morning, they go nowhere,
Exactly.
or they stay this, or they very small incremental growth, versus the way less talented people who put the work in and just blow past them. It's
Oh, you
really
got it.
incredible to
Yeah,
see.
work ethic beats talent 7 days out of 7, right?
Yep. Yeah,
But
we actually had Brian Tracy on the show. If there are any Brian Tracy fans out there and you want to check out an episode of Waste No Day, December 3rd, 2023, we really lucked out and got Brian on the show, because it was about 3 years of me chasing him down to get him on that show.
I will definitely put an exclamation point on that one too. Incredible episode. Something he said, I absolutely have adopted when I'm talking to business owners about my coaching. So love that episode. So everyone go listen to it.
What was the adoption?
Yeah. So when he's the part of the show, that episode when he was talking about when he would be hired to speak for events, and they would ask him how much his speaking fee is, and he'd tell them, I'm free plus profit, meaning every single time I speak, you're going to earn back your entire investment plus some, right? And so it's the same thing when I'm talking to business owners or individuals about the training. Is like, listen, I'm basically free plus profit, because I've not had a single occurrence when someone implements that they haven't made back the entire investment plus your lifetime increased income, because you've learned the skills and been intentional and now are a better person, because of, not because you invested with me, but because you chose to invest in yourself and learn and grow and do better. And so that's the piece that I took from that episode that has
Awesome.
most affected right now.
Yeah, and for people in the truck, managers and owners will like this piece a lot more than everybody else. But the thing he said that most stuck out to me, and I made some reels out of it. Mm-hmm. And then we had Chris Foss, the author of Never Split the Difference, FBI hostage negotiator, on last week as we record this.
Episode number 2 with him.
Yeah, they both said the same thing, just slightly differently.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Tracy said, the second you cut your price, you tell your client, the only reason to do business with me is because I'm cheaper than somebody else.
Right.
And Chris Voss said, you never cut your price, period. Like, he just hard stop, never cut your price, never discount. But Brian Tracy's way of saying that is, the second you cut your price, you say, this is the only reason to do business with me because I'm cheaper. That's not, it's difficult, especially if you're newer in your sales journey, because it is such a cheat code.
Yeah.
Like, you can take somebody from barely interested to closed by dropping your price. But listen to me carefully. Now, I still do it with technicians from time to time who are not going to get a sale without it. This is not selling.
No.
This is you caving in and giving up.
Yep. This is
if you have sold up to this point, they should not think they should be able to get it cheaper. Mm-hmm. Right? It's no different than going to Chick-fil-A and ordering a chicken sandwich and asking, can you guys cut 20% off that? Like, come on.
Yeah.
This is
I don't want to pay $7 for a sandwich. Let's do $5
for a sandwich. Look, I'll give you guys. I got 5 ones crisped up in the ashtray here and 2 quarters. I'll give you $5.50. Like, come on. It doesn't make sense, and it should. That's almost how you should see it when somebody asks you to cut your price. But again, you need a lot of training to get up to the point where you don't cut your price. But we had somebody on the show named Daniel Arroyas, and for, I don't know, a year and a half or whatever, that was the most downloaded episode we'd ever done, including like Tom Hopkins and Tim Kennedy and Chris Voss. Like none of these guys touched that episode, where he did $7 million in 1 year as a comfort advisor without giving a single discount, not one time, because he absolutely refuses to give a discount.
Yeah.
And talks all about it throughout the episode. It's an amazing episode, but it's just his mindset now. He's not discounting his price. Like the price, much like if you just went to shop at Walmart, the price is the price. I'll either build the value to the point where you see it's worth that price, or I failed and you don't buy.
Agreed. Yeah.
But it's one or the other.
And what does it take so this is a perfect segue. What does it take to become a person with the certainty, with the confidence, with the posture to be able to even do that and hold the line for that?
Well, the very foundation of it, well, it's just something great about hanging out with Andy Elliott and his team and having him on the show here recently, and some of his team on the show, is, man, they don't start anywhere near your sales ability or your communication or your product.
Sure.
They start at so much more granular level than that. And part of the reason I wanted to have him on the show is, over the last 3 years, we've been doing Waste No Day. We've had like diet people on and fitness experts and, money experts and personal finance people on. And like, we've always tried to cover all the bases and just say like, let's just be right. Let's be well.
Yeah.
And they start there. Like they start with get yourself in shape, like your physical fitness level. So if you have a conversation with somebody who's in great shape, are they more or less confident than they were when they were out of shape?
Way more confidence.
Right. So that's the very beginning. And we're not even talking about product yet. I'm somebody who can, bench, squat, or deadlift significantly more than my own body weight and still, run around the block without collapsing of heat exhaustion and a heart attack. Right. These things are important.
Yeah.
Well, why are they important? Well, if you got kids, is it important that you can protect them? Okay. And I'm not trying to make anybody feel like crap. Although if you do, that's a you problem.
Sure. If the shoe fits, wear it, right? And
own it
and take radical responsibility for where you are in life. And there's no wrong answer, but it's more of a measuring stick to know where you're starting from to make progress.
Yeah. And
right?
Look, everybody's starting in a different place. It doesn't matter where you're starting. It's a line, right? As long as you're heading in the same direction, that's the important part.
Right.
So doing something to get in better shape. But I assure you, here's the way it works. We do a close I call the reverse engineering close that I came up with like last summer. And this is the same type of thing. You can do this on yourself with just about anything. If you had spent the entire year of 2023 jogging every morning and then lifting weights in the evening, would you give one day of it back to have watched more TV?
Absolutely not.
Do you swear on this show? Because I was about to drop no. F no, right?
Absolutely
not.
Yeah, you can if you feel compelled.
No. We don't swear on Waste No Day. So I keep it clean on podcast. Although, it can go the other way in the training room. Who knows?
I keep it clean. We've had a few where I've had to put the EU on the episode.
Oh my goodness, dude. We had the Tim Kennedy episode was just a barrage of F-bombs that my poor son had to try to cut out. And I'm just polluting his mind. And he's like 14 at that time, But yeah, so
he's like, Dad, I hear this music all the time. We're fine.
Yeah, if you were like, forget how you looked, but if you had just done that every day of 2023, is there an amount of money I could give you to get you to undo that, right? And forget money, because maybe
not.
But is there an amount of movies or episodes of The Office or whatever that I could say you could have watched all this TV? You could have played Call of Duty for 500 more hours if you had just not ran at all or lifted weights at all, or locked yourself in a room and studied a book with a notepad at all, or this one's going to hit me personally here with an uppercut, or taken 45 minutes every single night and sat between your daughter's beds and read to them at night to be that much better of a father. Because I don't know what it is. Like, I know I do a lot of things well in terms of fatherhood because I grew up without a dad. And it drives me in terms of like, I don't want my kids to experience what I had to as a result of living in Detroit with no freaking dad.
Yeah.
I don't want to do a talk without throwing shots at him because as far as I know, he's unfortunately still alive. I grew up 15 minutes away from him while he was raising another family and only met him one time on accident when I was 5. Ooh,
wow.
Yeah. This is the winner he is. But I always do, I got a twin brother and we always do this same thing where we just don't want our kids to have that experience. So we go overboard or try to on our kids. But for some reason, if I spent all of April or every night I sat between their beds and read a book to them in the evening before they went to sleep, I look back on April as like I crushed it as a father.
Right.
Because it's really hard for me to do that. I cannot set aside time from 7:30 to 8:15 to read. So you have your own version of that, right?
Or you just are choosing differently.
Absolutely.
Reframe that a little bit. Yeah.
But it's why I feel so powerful and like I'm crushing it as a father when I do it because it's difficult. It's hard to do. It's like getting up and going to the gym.
They're hard. The things that are hard to do and hard not to, they're easy to do, but also easy not to do. They're simple to do, but the actual act of it is hard, right?
Yep.
So it's making these agreements with ourselves and then holding true to our word, right?
Yeah, and you have your own versions of that. Everyone listening to this has versions of that where when you're doing this, you're crushing it. You're a better person. You just have to make the choice to do those things, which is
absolutely
difficult every time, right?
This is so much it. And I love to have these conversations around things that are not specifically just sales skills, because you take any top performer and every single one will tell you it's way more than just the script, right? You can teach a trained monkey the script. So what, right? If that's not a person that someone wants to buy from, but they know the process, they know the script, but all of these things are failing in life, then that comes through if they have no confidence. So it's all the other things that make top performers outside of just the words you say.
Yeah, and it's diet actually plays a bigger part than we like to believe as well. It plays a huge role. For one, it's going to determine how much energy you have late in the day. And I mean, what you ate yesterday may actually determine how much energy you have later in the day today. What you eat all week and how much you sleep determines how much energy you have on Thursday and Friday afternoons calls. And another, not to just make this an Andy Elliott podcast, but something I think he said it on our show. Fans. Yeah, he said, if you were driving a Ferrari, would you put the same regular unleaded gas that you put in your work truck?
Absolutely not.
And you're like, no. But if you did, would you expect it to perform like a Ferrari? And no, you wouldn't. Now, what type of person are you trying to be? Are you trying to be a 98 Toyota Corolla? Or are you trying to be a 2025 Lamborghini Gallardo?
Right.
Like, if you're trying to be that Lambo of a person, you better be putting the right fuel in, right? And what that looks like is just, for me, really, like, I'm crushing it when there's no sugar. I quit drinking in 2021, so there's none of that. It's if I'm drinking something, it needs to be water almost exclusively. If I'm around a lot of people drinking, just so I don't kind of get the urge, I'll actually do like Coke Zero just to completely go like change it up and go sideways. You can't have much caffeine, unfortunately. I know it feels good and necessary in that first shot, but like if you need it in the morning, no sooner than an hour after you wake up, then get it, but don't do it throughout the day. It changes your personality. It makes you more tired. It makes you groggier the next day. Like these types of things. If you're in addiction, be it alcohol, drugs, painkillers, I've been through all of it, and rehab. I'm telling you, it just freaking admit it. I mean, I was in a place where I couldn't quote unquote afford financially to not work, but I was an addict. So I went through a rehab program, and my wife waited tables and lived with her parents with our two kids while I was in there.
Wow.
It's just one of these things that has to happen. Like you've got to get your crap together. And there was a saying, I don't remember where it came from. And I love to quote, I always want to give credit to people I hear quotes from twofold. One, because I don't like that plagiarizing thing where I stole somebody else's stuff and pretend it's mine. It just feels so weak.
Agreed. Yeah.
But two, I have imposter syndrome and not a whole lot of self-esteem. So I figure if it came from a bigger name than me, I'll actually believe it. I've recently discovered that about myself. So that's fun.
Well, now you know what to work on.
Yeah. So, but the saying was, whatever you surrender to controls you. And if you're just like, I've got to with anything. Now, if you say I've got to get my lift in the morning or my jog or my push-ups and pull-ups or whatever, or I'm not a great person, hell yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go. But if you're like, I've got to have my 4 sugar-free Monster energy drinks every day, or I just am groggy, you've surrendered. You're getting beat by a can.
You're giving your power away
with a 600% markup on labor and materials. By the way,
I don't hear anybody say your price is too high.
Oh, your price is too high. Oh gosh, this guy's driving me crazy.
It's like, I'm like, have you ever bought an iPhone? Do we know actually know how much their markup is? Thousands of percent for any Apple product, right?
Not to mention the slave labor in China getting doled out to make it. But yeah, it's like we buy stuff with a 2, 3, 4, 600,000 X whatever percent markup all day, every day, and don't bat an eye. But if one of our competitors does it, goes 2.5 times their cost of goods sold, you're like, rip off artist. Right. How does he sleep in it? It's funny. Yeah, but any of these things where you're just like, I have to, they control you.
Yeah.
Now look at yourself in the rear view mirror when you're at the stoplight here, and say, do I want to be controlled by some company out of China or whatever that makes energy drinks? Like, no, absolutely not. Yeah. Stick to your basics, man. Meat, white rice, veggies, whatever, some fruit here and there, but kill the sugar, all but kill the caffeine. I mean, I'll have it a few times a week when I'm like working out. It's going to be a struggle this morning. Last night I slept like 3.5 hours, but like not as your daily routine. You're not dependent on anything.
Same.
Nobody gets to control you.
Even with the show, I do the What's in Your Cup series, so we're always talking about different coffees from all over the world or different beans and stuff. But 100% everybody listen to this message, because I mean, personally, this is my sober year as well. I cut it out more and more the last few years, and I haven't had a single drop of alcohol this year, not because I have anything against alcohol in general, but it was holding me back.
Nice. Right? Congrats, buddy.
Thanks. And so especially when it comes to weight too, I mean, I'm down like 50 pounds from where I was. I'm started intentionally measuring my body fat percentage and all those things. I have a big goal, right? I know you're down a ton. And, this is one of the things that I like to talk about, because I've been so candid with so many homeowners over the years, asking, what could I have done better, right? And everybody listen, if this is something you're not doing, start doing this. Win the sale or not, always ask the homeowners, so I can be better, what's something I could have done better or differently, right? And listen to their feedback over and over. The one that I heard about weight, and this is very specific, I had plenty of homeowners that actually had the luxury to get to do a sales appointment with them before I lost weight, and then a sales appointment with them after I lost weight. for some various reasons. Either there was a situation where they didn't move forward the first time or whatever reason. And so I started asking them about the experiences. And one of the themes that came up, so everybody listen to this very closely. One of the things somebody told me one time that hit me right between the eyes was, well, when somebody comes in my home to sell me something, if they are overweight and you can tell that they clearly aren't taking care of themselves, the thought that goes through my head is, if they don't have enough self-discipline to take care of their own body, how do I know they're going to take care of my project? Mm. That was a direct quote from a homeowner. I was like, holy crap. Okay, I've got to get myself in order, right? Because if I'm losing deals strictly because I haven't been able to manage my own, my own self-discipline, whoa.
That sounds harsh and like overboard. And you're like, well, I don't want to work for those people anyway. That's a thing.
It is a thing.
And if you're in Arizona and in the area I'm in right now, I'm sitting in a shop in Scottsdale where we're at, that's not just a thing. That's like more than the average people that don't respect. Tom Hopkins had this saying that I heard first in 2004 at maybe it was at the seminar. He said, there are two things, this is 20 years ago. There are two things you can't be simultaneously in America today in the eyes of many of your clients. Mm-hmm. And that is a smoker and intelligent. That was 20 years ago. And we still have techs walking into people's homes, making their kitchens smell like cigarettes.
Exactly.
And I was talking about this with my team today. I cannot tell you how many clients I've talked to since I've been in leadership the last 11 years that have complained about a tech coming over and making their house smell like a cigarette. Yep. I can't even tell you how many times. It's been dozens and dozens and dozens. We are now at this place where there are also people who look at you as when you're very physically unfit and feel the exact same way.
Absolutely.
If you're not taking care of that, which has to be among the most important things in your life because it's what you live in, how can I expect that you're going to take care of my home? That's pretty low on your list of priorities because you don't ever have to be here again.
Exactly. It's powerful. And so for everybody listening to this, is not to beat anyone up, but more importantly,
except the electricians. Not beating the electricians up.
Yeah, except the electricians. Right. More importantly, to open your mind to like literally how homeowners think. Brian and I, we get the privilege to get to talk to so many people and have assessed, the disposition. Why, talking to homeowners after, why didn't you move forward? Why did you move forward? And this is the sentiment that comes from so many people, good or bad, it is what it is. And so if you can control it, it's instead of giving your power away. So I was born with these genes, or this is my bone structure. Well, I mean, we're here to tell you that sadly, that's just a lie you've been fed across the years. So
I've seen so many technicians and friends and family, even with everything you can name. The thyroid is a huge one. There's been so many people even related to me that have always said that they can't lose weight because they have a thyroid condition, who have lost. I mean, I have one person in my family who lost over 100 pounds on the keto diet after watching this documentary I put out to everybody called The Magic Pill. Just an absolutely amazing documentary. But she lost over 100 pounds. She literally looked like, and I don't ever see her. So she just posted pics, I don't know, a year later of being down 100 pounds with a thyroid condition. I was like, right? What? I didn't even know that was happening.
Hey, if it's possible, it's possible, right? Yeah.
Yeah. You will not stay the same weight when significantly less calories come in than go out. That's not possible. Like try that with your bank account.
Sure.
And see how a thyroid affects it, right? It just is what it is. Mm-hmm. So, and to take it a step further, like forget the client, right? Not everything in the world is about making a sale.
Right. Agreed.
The difference in the technicians that I've coached and trained over the last 11 years who have gotten involved in some form of physical fitness in their entire existence is different. Their entire life is different. And I have this wheel that I use for training, which is the 4 F's that I talk about from time to time, which is, and you can put it in any way you want. For me, it's faith, finances, family, fitness.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'll mentor people and coach people. And I'll say on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at for each one of the four of these? And then I'll say, what does a 10 for you look like? And then I'll say, like, what are 3 things you can be doing over the next 30, 90 days, whatever, that can get you closer to that 10. And you're answering all the questions. I'm not coming up with anything. I'm very lazy.
There's no wrong answers here. It's whatever relates.
Yeah,
to
I'll
them,
write
right?
them down, but I'm gonna throw it away, and you have to remember it. Like, you're doing all the work here, right? So, and then the next time we check in, I'll say, or even every couple of weeks, I'll just text you like, how's it going with those things you were supposed to do before the next time we meet? And I'm not pushing a faith on anyone. I'm just saying whatever yours is, you go in on it. What does a 10
are you
look like for you?
congruent with in alignment with what you know
Right.
you should be doing?
Yeah, faith in yourself, whatever you want to call it. Now, the fitness one, there's no other one that people start crushing that I and they see a bigger difference in them in every aspect of their life than the fitness one. Mm-hmm. And funny enough, the biggest one has always been when someone says, I will not consume sugar anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, if I have sugar, it is fruit. But I'm not a big believer in you have to have fruit in your diet. So I'm just going to throw that out there. But other than fruit, there's no sugar in my diet. That's the fastest one where people, now look, you're going to have a little bit of a withdrawal, especially if you're consuming like a lot of soda and eating a lot of like heavy, like cake ice cream type stuff.
Yeah.
You're going to experience withdrawal. You're going to have a crappy time for the first 10 days. But there's no other one that happens where people are like instant, immediate. I notice a huge difference in my personality.
Right. Agreed.
More sleep, get up earlier, lose weight faster, have more energy throughout the day, especially the end of the day.
Way clearer in your mind. Yeah. Especially with what we do. We've got to be so on it to instantly be able to think clearly in a way that, and then more importantly, be able to communicate and articulate our thoughts in a way that people understand it and, they get what you're trying to say. And man, that mental clarity for cutting sugar out, it's huge.
Yeah. So that's been the biggest one, man. But then the second biggest is when people get up earlier than they have to, because you have that time where you have to get up or you're going to be late for whatever. But getting up an hour earlier and getting a pump is what we would call it in the gym, getting under some weight that's a little bit too heavy for you. And you got your buddy making sure it doesn't kill you.
Yeah.
And then going at your day after that, you're two different people. You can't change any more than that.
Absolutely.
I try to do that every day.
And so for everybody listening, this feels at first glance, and especially if you're not really ingrained in this world, it feels like, what are these two guys? Both of these guys host podcasts. They're really, popular podcasts, really sales focused podcast. And why in the hell are they talking about weight loss and all these other things? Because they are that important. That's why, right? The missing pieces that the average people have that top performers are not missing are these components. So hear this as we want to, help you with the missing pieces. Everybody's asking, getting into the summer this year, it's going to be crazy. What can I do to prepare? Hit the gym more. Eat better,
buddy.
Right? Work on your mind, right? The skills will come. Anytime I do a tune-up call, right? Somebody will call, they've done my coaching program, their numbers are killing it and that kind of thing. And they'll call me back, weeks or months later or whenever, like, man, I'm in a slump. How do we get out of it? That's what we do. I'll take them through the process. I'm like, okay, where's your personal growth? Where's your spiritual life? Where's your relationships? Where is your nutrition? Where's your fitness? Let's not even talk about sales skills right now. Are you doing everything you need to know you need to be doing in those categories? And almost every single time somebody's like, oh, I got busy and started going through fast food, or I started skipping the gym, or I'm not doing my morning routine and reading my religious text like I should be, and not having starting my day off mentally right. It's always something else. It's never, oh, well, I said this instead of that with the objection, right? And so that's the message we're bringing to everybody. Is like, these are successful people do the things that unsuccessful people don't think they do. And these are those things.
Yeah, it's very small things, but they're done by successful people, and they're not done by unsuccessful people because they're difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's at the end of the day, they're not tough to do on an every single, or sorry, they're not easy to do on an every single day basis. But the more you do them, like that whole reverse engineering thing, the more you see yourself succeeding.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get a little time strung together of doing these things consistently, and you see who you were back then, if you
Mm-hmm.
stop doing them, you look back on that person as a much better version of you than who you are now.
Right.
And you're like, I got to find my way back there.
Love it.
And
Love it.
and oftentimes you will find your way back there, and it'll be a total game changer.
Oh, that's it. And so then you can do like this guy and that guy.
Start flexing on them. Yeah.
Yeah. For everybody paying attention, we're pointing with the, over there with the biceps. So you have to watch the YouTube to actually get the full effect. So at some point it will be on there, the reels. But man, it has been awesome hanging out, talking today. We've got.
And you want to do, and before we go, buddy, you want to do any sales training, some objection, or
no? So that's the cool part.
A rebuttal.
We literally just did, but actually, you've mentioned it several times, and I would love to take us through your reverse engineering close that you've talked about a few times. Let's do that and apply it to HVAC. Because I absolutely love that close, and so it was a stroke of genius. So kudos.
Thank you.
And yeah, so let's do that one before we go because it's so powerful, and it works.
All right, so IAQ.
Yeah, let's do IQ. I'll be your homeowner.
We'll do like a package together with like UV light, one of the electric filters, and
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, humidifier or something like that.
Cleaning and some air seal and humidifier. Just throw the whole
air seal. Yeah, clean and seal. Sorry, I'm plumbing only now, so I forget what all you guys you goofballs in the HVAC
get it all
so.
in there. Yeah. All right, so I'm the homeowner. I'll ask you. I'll just ask you a kind of super massive open-ended question and rock from there. How about that?
You want to just do the financing thing, because that's still a huge one for people that say I don't finance.
Yeah, that's one that they miss so many times.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, looks awesome. It makes total sense, man. But geez, I don't know. It's a lot of money, Brian. I think we're gonna have to probably. Can you email this to us? We'll get back to you. We're gonna have to, think about this for a few days.
Oh yeah, I totally get it, man. So it is a lot to think about. Quick question though. I showed you with the promotional plans we have available, we could get you down on this thing for $140 a month. Was that not something you wanted to do?
It probably will be, but you're the first person really that's ever shown us anything like this. Everybody else has just said, hey, you just need this one thing. So it's just a lot bigger than what we were expecting. Nobody else really had anything like this. So we just got to talk it over, make sure it's something we want to put some, that amount of money in.
Oh, sounds great, man. Before I get out of here, let me ask you a quick question. Was the fact that I was the only one to show you a way to do all these things with the air in your home for your kids, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Oh, that was definitely good. It, for sure educated us way more than everybody else has.
Okay, so you're glad I showed you that at least.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. We didn't know what we didn't know before that.
Let me ask you another quick question. Would you play a game with me real quick, and then I'll just get out of
here? Sure. Yeah.
A quick little imagination game, and I promise it won't take more than a couple minutes, and I'll roll. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go.
Let's say that we pulled the trigger, right? Let's say for a year now, you've had ultraviolet lighting in your ductwork, sterilizing any kind of bacteria and keeping any kind of growth and mold from forming, and taking the moisture out of there, right? Mm-hmm. You have this electronic filter, unlike this filter that we can see through right here that I just showed you. It's like magnetizing any particles to it, and they stick to it, really getting everything out of the air. We've got that humidification and dehumidification so that your humidity level is perfect in your home all year round, exactly how you said you wanted it. Let's say you already have all this stuff installed, mm-hmm. and I come knocking on your door. And I say, Sam, do I have a deal for you, buddy? You're going to love this. I am going to take your ductwork and I'm going to put a whole bunch of moisture in it. We'll probably get some kind of weird bacterial growth going on that you guys will get to breathe in. We're going to remove that electronic filter. So all the hair follicles and the dead skin cells are just going to be floating all through your home, and the allergens and stuff that you're protected from now, and the pollen's just going to be floating around in the air. All the bacteria is getting thrown back in there. We're going to remove the humidifier and dehumidifier so that you're susceptible to whatever the elements tell you the humidity level is going to be in your home. We're going to do all that, put all this stuff back into your system that you were protected from, that the kids were protected from. But for your troubles, I'm going to give you $35 a week.
Ew.
Would you take that deal?
Hell no. Absolutely not.
Why not?
Well, I mean, my family's health is definitely more important than $35 a week. That's for sure.
Even if let's say we took the bacteria part out. All right, I won't add that back in. The bacteria floating around, that's still going to be sterilized. What about just all the dust and allergens and moisture and potential growth in the ductwork? Would you let me just add all that back in for $35 a week?
No, absolutely not. No, that's pretty good.
Why not?
Well, it's now that you say it this way, it doesn't make any sense to if there's a way to get it out of the air to protect, my breathing and my family's breathing, then it doesn't make any sense to put it. We sure wouldn't pay to put it back. That's for sure.
Yeah. So when you really look at it, $140 a month, it's not a lot to pay for all the things you're getting with this, is it?
No, I really guess not, because like, if it's really protected from all of that, then it definitely starts to make more sense that way.
Yeah. And again, man, if it was just you here by yourself, I'd say keep the money in your pocket. It is what it is. We'll be fine, right? But we're talking about the kids and stuff. Can I go ahead and get you taken care of today and just get this stuff thrown in?
You know what? Yeah, let's do it. Go ahead and put it in. You got everything on the truck?
Got it on the truck. What I don't have, I'll get dropped off.
Perfect. Beautiful. So smooth, man.
The reverse engineering close, like anything, is make them imagine the scenario where they already have all these things done. And this can be like, we've removed this old furnace or air conditioning unit, heat pump, and we've put the new, more efficient unit in. Mm-hmm. And you've had it for a while and you've been enjoying this zoned system where now every room is the same temperature or what have you. And you talk about all the things they have or they will get, like they already enjoy it.
Right.
And then you come in for the same amount of money that they're going to pay in the financing. And you say, I'll give you this amount, but break it down to the week, not the month.
Yeah.
Or day. And say, I'll give you this amount to let me yank it all out and put all the old crappy stuff back that you had. Would you take that amount of money for that? And the only miss we've had so far, and all the people I have in 3 different states that I talked to about using this before I released it to the public, the only miss we've had was where people don't know what the heck you're saying, which is like not everybody's
a communication issue,
right?
not the concept.
Yes, most of the time, but I do feel like sometimes there are just some people who you're going to see like the eyes gloss over. They're just like they're not going to get what you're saying. Yeah. But for the most part, what we've had was massive success. And the biggest place to use this is with people who say, I don't like financing.
Yeah.
I don't like using financing. And we're getting those a lot across the country right now.
Yeah, same.
And that's where I'll go with, okay, but if you did like finance, or I'm sorry, but if you did have the money to pay for it right now, would you take it? And the people say, absolutely. And you go, okay, is there a time you see yourself having that amount of money? Mm-hmm. And they'll usually say like, tax season's coming up. And you go, okay, so what you're saying is in 3 months or whatever, when tax season rolls around, you will most likely get this done. And if they say yes, it's over. Mm-hmm. If they qualify for the financing.
Sure.
And you say, look, Then you do the reverse engineering on the monthly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you just say, look, with most promotional plans, quote unquote, what I call financing, it's like 30 to 45 days before you even make a first payment.
Yeah.
So they're telling you they're going to have the money in 2 payments,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you can say, look, if you don't come up with that kind of cash to just pay it all, just pay the monthly.
Yeah.
Or make double payments, make triple payments. Who cares? But don't stroke a check that big when you don't have to. That just doesn't make sense. Use our
Exactly.
money. Keep your money.
Exactly. Especially when you all offer 0%. It's like, listen, what most I love to use social proof. It's like
I'm very anti 0%. Well,
oh
if
yeah,
there's a
okay.
sorry, I should say if there's a deadline attached to it,
Yeah.
like if they don't pay it all off by 18 months, they get hit with 26%
30%.
interest
Yeah.
on the whole nut. Then
Right.
I'm like, no, I don't promote that. Cause it actually happened to me in timeshare the first time when I sold timeshare for a year and a half. I had this older Filipino couple who bought a big package from me and they bought it on that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 12 months. And I always gave people my cell phone number. And I said, and you weren't supposed to, but I always gave my cell phone number and said, call me the first time you use it and tell me what you think of it.
Yeah.
And most people would, and they would love it and say it was amazing, but they would always have like their one complaint, and hope that I could fix it. And this couple called and said, I mean, they seemed very like financially savvy people. And the lady said she has one bone to pick. And she said that they didn't pay the financing off in time because they had something else come up.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me the amount. I don't remember what it was, and it could have been a $20,000 or $30,000 vacation package. She told me the amount that they had to pay in interest, and I was like, oh, like just like that, all that interest, boom, caught up, and blam, got
Right.
posted
Get
right
dumped
on
right on
top of the
top.
bill.
Mm-hmm.
And from that moment, I was salty about presenting these no interest plans. And then it happened a couple more times later in my career. I go out on
Sure.
a maintenance call, I get them signed up on some financing. I go out again a year or 2 years later or whatever, and I have someone say they felt like they got raked over the coals by the
Mm-hmm.
financing company. I know it's not your fault and everything, but man. So I moved to a place where I would get them involved in the lowest interest package
Yeah.
and say, just make this very small monthly payment for as long as you need to.
Mm-hmm.
And if you decide to pay it off, pay it off. Will you pay a few months of interest? Yeah. But so what? What you're
Sure.
not going to do, it's 9.99. What you're not going to do is get shellacked with 30% interest a year and a half from now because something else came up and this gets put on the back
And you
burner.
couldn't pay
So
for it. Yeah. This plan gives
that's
you
just me.
flexibility, right? No, 100%. And when I'm training people to present pricing, the first thing I'm like, the first thing you show should be the lowest possible payment for these people. It's like,
Yeah.
don't all these big, huge numbers. It's like, okay, show low payments. If they're a cash buyer, they'll tell you they're a cash buyer, but let them get comfortable with the process before you dive into the rest.
Yeah.
Right.
And generally speaking, if you're working like a 6 or 12 month no interest plan, if they could make 6 or 12 payments and pay it all off, they would just write you a check.
Right. Yeah.
Everyone thinks they're going to be fine with that. And so many people get shellacked with that interest later. And then they're stuck on that 28% interest on that loan until they pay it off. Like they're paying a fortune. And the finance companies, I'm not talking trash about any of them in particular, but
they love that. That's for sure.
they are praying that you sign them up on that plan and they don't pay it off.
Yeah.
That's where they make their money.
Yep, absolutely. Nope, 100% agree. When it fits, it fits. If not, then the rest of the time is absolutely listen to what we're saying here. Don't put people in a situation where they could end up worse off than they are right now. Is the
And look,
part of it.
You know the people. If they're just like, hey, I get my taxes in 4 months, but I want to do this right here, right now, and you got the 6 month no interest or 18 or whatever, and you want to pay that. Now, mind you, your company pays a small fortune for those plans versus the lower interest plans, which there might be no company fee for you at all on the lower interest plans. So, be wary of that. But yeah, if they're just like, I'll have this thing paid off 100%, no question about it, then it is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's it. And obviously everybody know the tracks to run on. If your company has, okay, these are the, 3, 4, 5 plans that we've got built into the pricing, everything's good to go, then, rock and roll. But if you're entering uncharted territory, have this conversation ahead of time with your sales manager, the owner of the company, or just know your numbers. More importantly, because if you don't measure it, you can't manage it.
Yeah, and you need to have these things in your head. Like if your your lowest interest rate plan is 10.99%, you should know what the multiple is. So if they have a $10,000 job, it's 0.018 or something times that is their monthly payment plan.
Yeah,
You should know
exactly.
all these numbers. You should be able to do this off the top of your head.
100% agree. Yeah. So this is part of the doing your work, is knowing all of your, not only your equipment and your materials, but also these are your tools, right? If nothing else, download a simple free like calculator for calculating some finance plans, right? So just do the work. We don't like resources, we like resourcefulness. Let's just grab the tool to use.
Yeah.
Yep, love it. Well, man, it is time to land this plane. I am I've got to bump into a one-on-one coaching that
Nice.
we've got over a little bit. So I will send. I'll give Nathan Reese is actually the my client, so I'm going to give him your cell phone number and tell him it's your fault that we're
Tell them
that
shoot
we're
me a
late.
text.
Yeah, text this guy. It's his fault. No, I'm taking responsibility. I'm driving the train here. But man, it's been awesome having you on the show. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited to continue part 2 on Waste No Day as well. So
Yeah,
for
buddy.
everybody listening, we're doing an episode swap here. We'll have to eventually do another one with you guys on you and or possibly, fingers crossed, at some point in time. Maybe we can get Nate on the show too. Because right now, as it stands, I'll be on your show twice and only once on mine. So we have to rectify that.
Nate's a great trainer, undercover, if you can get him to do it.
Well, tell you what, how about this? Write a book and let's launch it.
All right, done.
Let's get your book on. No, I love it, man. Well, thanks for being here. Any last words to the crowd before we words of wisdom before we sign off here?
Yeah, it's what I've been giving my son a lot lately and my team here, which is something Tim Kennedy said. If you don't know who he is, look him up. But on Waste No Day, way back, episode 50, he's like, do hard stuff, period. Like, do hard, find things to do that are really difficult, a little bit outside of what you're comfortable with right here, right now, and figure it out. That's really the game plan. Because every time you do, your brain stretches and grows in ways that it can't reshape from.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Oh, I love that. It's like the growth, just what we started talking about at the beginning of the episode. It's perfect to land on. So,
and close it now, wisdom, baby.
And close it now. Absolutely. Waste no days and close it the day that you got it, right? So, well, thanks for being on. Super quick announcements. Couple things real quick. Go grab the Closing Out online course at www.hvacdoors.net. We have a whole module in there that I did with Sam Taggart that has door scripting for HVAC. You can go to closeitnow.net to learn more about the coaching programs, how to book me for an on-site visit, how to book me as a speaker for your next event. And watch out. I've got one, possibly even 2 books coming out this year. And more importantly, go join the Facebook group for both Waste No Day and Close It Now. They both have, Brian has incredible, thriving Facebook group for Waste No Day. And go listen to the Waste No Day podcast. Also, how do people get a hold of you, Brian?
Best way to find me is probably on Facebook at Brian Burton. Just type in Brian Burton Waste No Day and I'll pop right up. Also, you can shoot me an email, brian@wastenoday.net.
Love it. I love that you're .net. All the Close It Now is .net because somebody years and years ago bought
the comms are taken,
and I've been trying to buy it every year for like 5 or 6 years. So we're .nets. So, all right, man. Thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks for listening. You know how we always end. Go save the world one heat stroke at a time.